Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name is Todd David Goldfinger, and I'm going to read you the news. Here we go. U.S. Representative Jeff Fortenberry of Nebraska was convicted on charges that he lied to federal authorities about an illegal $30,000 contribution to his campaign from foreign billionaire at a 2016 Los Angeles fundraiser. A federal jury in LA deliberated about 2 hours Thursday before finding the 9-term Republican guilty of concealing information and 2 counts of making false statements to authorities. Fortenberry was charged after denying to the FBI that he was aware he had received illicit funds from Gilbert Chagoury, a Nigerian billionaire of Lebanese descent. Fortenberry showed no emotion as the verdict was read, but his youngest daughter began sobbing uncontrollably in the front of the gallery as her mother tried to console her. After the jury left the courtroom, Fortenberry walked over to his wife and the 2 of his 5 daughters who were present and clasped them in a hug. Outside the courthouse, Fortenberry said the process had been unfair and he would appeal immediately. He would not say if he would suspend his campaign for re-election, saying he was going to spend time with his family. In quotes, "I'm getting so many beautiful messages from people literally all around the world who've been praying for us and pulling for us," he said. The judge said sentencing for June 28th. Each count carries a potential 5-year prison sentence and fines. It was the first trial of a sitting congressman since Representative Jim Traficant, a Democrat from Ohio, was convicted of bribery and other felony charges in 2002. Fortenberry, 61, did not testify, but his lawyers argued at trial that he wasn't aware of the contribution and that agents directed an information to feed him the information in a 10-minute call to set him up. Next news. Second insider in a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer told jurors that the group was prepared to use a grenade launcher and machine gun to fight security officers at her vacation home. Khalid Franks, who pleaded guilty in February, on Thursday backed up many points offered a day earlier by Ty Garbin, another man who admitted a role in a wild scheme to abduct Whitmer and somehow take her by boat out to Lake Michigan. Franks is expected back on the witness stand Friday for cross-examination by defense lawyers. Franks, 27, said an alleged leader, Adam Fox, believed Whitmer's COVID-19 restrictions were, in quotes, tyrannical, and that the U.S. Constitution gave the men a right to strike back. He said no one was forced to stick with the plan, and many people had dropped away by late summer 2020. In quotes, "I was going to be an operator," end quotes, Franks replied when asked by a prosecutor to describe his role in the kidnapping. In quotes. I would be one of the people on the front line, so to speak, using my gun, end quotes. He said Fox talked about snatching the governor, in quotes, every time I saw him. Next news. The Arizona legislature on Thursday joined the growing list of Republican-led states to pass aggressive anti-abortion legislation as the conservative U.S. Supreme Court is considering ratcheting back abortion rights that have been in place for nearly 50 years. The House voted on party lines to outlaw abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy, mirroring a Mississippi law now being considered by the nation's high court. The bill explicitly says it does not overrule a state law in place for more than 100 years that would ban abortion outright if the Supreme Court overrules Roe versus Wade, the 1973 case that enshrined the right to abortion in law. The bill now goes to Republican Governor Doug Ducey, an abortion opponent who has signed every piece of anti-abortion legislation that has reached his desk since he took office in 2015. Florida lawmakers passed a similar 15-week abortion ban early this month that Republican Governor Ron DeSantis is expected to sign. A bill in West Virginia failed to pass the state Senate by the time its legislative session ended earlier this month after passing the House. Next news. 3 Muslim Americans filed a lawsuit Thursday alleging that U.S. border officers questioned them about their religious beliefs in violation of their constitutional rights when they returned from international travel. The 3 men from Minnesota, Texas, and Arizona sued Department of Homeland Security officials in federal court in Los Angeles. The lawsuit was filed in California because some of the questioning allegedly occurred in Los Angeles International Airport. In the lawsuit, the men claimed that U.S. border officers at land crossings and international airports peppered them with questions about whether they were Muslim and attended a mosque and how often they prayed. The American Civil Liberties Union, which is representing the men, said the questioning violated the men's constitutional rights to freedom of religion and protection against unequal treatment, in quotes. Just as border officials may not single out Christian Americans to ask what denomination they are, which church they attend, and how regularly they pray, singling out Muslim Americans for similar questions is unconstitutional, end quotes, said the lawsuit. That was LAX. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thanks.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Here we go. The United States and European Union on Friday announced a new partnership to reduce the continent's reliance on Russian energy. The start of a years-long initiative to further isolate Moscow after its invasion of Ukraine. As part of the plan, the U.S. and other nations will increase liquefied natural gas exports to Europe by 15 billion cubic meters this year, the White House said. Even larger shipments would be delivered in the future. At the same time, they will try to keep their climate goals on track by powering gas infrastructure with clean energy and reducing methane leaks that can worsen global warming. Although the initiative will likely require new facilities for importing liquefied natural gas, the partnership is also geared towards reducing reliance on fossil fuels in the long run through energy efficiency and alternative sources of energy, according to the White House. U.S. President Joe Biden was set to discuss the issue with Ursula von der Leyen, head of the EU, head of the European Union's executive arm, before leaving for Poland, the final leg of his 4-day trip. Next news. Majority of Americans say they don't blame President Joe Biden for high gasoline prices, but they're giving his economic leadership low marks amid fears of inflation and deep pessimism about economic conditions. About 7 in 10 Americans say the nation's economy is in bad shape, and close to two-thirds disapprove of Biden's handling of the economy, according to a new poll from the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. In addition, Americans are more likely to say his policies have hurt the economy than helped it. Yet, less than half say the jump in gas prices is Biden's fault, a reflection of how the country is processing Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the resulting increase in oil costs. The polls hints at a paradox in which the public views Biden as being in power without necessarily being in control. His hopes for a lasting economic renaissance have faded as Americans cope with higher food and energy costs. And the promise of a country no longer under the pandemic sway has been supplanted by the uncertainty of war in Europe. In quotes. Going to get worse before it gets better, end quotes, said Adam Nuago, 53, a truck driver from Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He says he sees inflation as spiraling outward with higher fuel prices, increasing with the costs of shipping, and ultimately raising prices across the broader economy, he says. Next news. After more than 30 hours of hearings, the Senate is on track to confirm Ketanji Brown Jackson as the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. But Democrats seem unlikely to confirm her with a robust bipartisan vote, dashing President Biden's hopes for a grand reset after partisan battles over other high court nominees. On Thursday, just hours after the hearings came to a close, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell announced he will vote against Jackson's confirmation. he said in a Senate floor speech that he cannot and will not support her for a lifetime appointment. McConnell slammed liberal groups that have supported Jackson, and he also criticized her for refusing to take a position on the size of the 9-member court, even though that decision is ultimately up to Congress. Some advocacy groups have pushed for enlarging the court after 3 justices nominated by former President Donald Trump cemented a 6-3 conservative majority. See what he did? McConnell also cited concerns about her sentencing of criminal defendants, a subject that dominated much of the 4 days of hearings and was part of a coordinated GOP effort to portray her as soft on crime. Next news. A House committee investigated the Capitol riot said Thursday that it had set a vote for next week to consider contempt of Congress charges for 2 aides of former President Donald J. Trump. The committee will meet Monday to discuss whether to recommend referring for potential prosecution for Trump's aides, Trump's former trade advisor, Peter Navarro, and former White House communications aide, Dan Scavino. The meeting marks the panel's latest effort to hold witnesses accountable, whom it sees as uncooperative in its investigation into the January 6, 2021 insurrection, when pro-Trump rioters stormed the Capitol building in hopes of blocking Congress from certifying the results of the presidential election won by Democrat Joe Biden. The committee subpoenaed Navarro for his testimony in early February, seeking to question the Trump ally who promoted false claims of voter fraud in the 2020 election. Though Navarro sought to use executive privilege to avoid cooperation, the Biden administration this month denied claims from him and another one-time Trump aide, former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, saying an assertion of executive privilege was not justified or in the national interest. In a statement Thursday, Navarro called the committee vote, in quotes, an unprecedented partisan assault on executive privilege. The committee knows full well that Donald J. Trump has invoked executive privilege, and it is not my privilege to waive, end quotes. Oh boy. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here is the continuation of today's top stories. Thanks for being with us. About 300 people died in a Russian airstrike last week on a theater being used as a bomb shelter in the besieged Ukrainian city of Mariupol. The city's government said Friday, citing eyewitnesses. When the theater was struck March 16th, an enormous inscription reading CHILDREN, end quotes, and was posted outside in Russian, intended to be visible from the skies above. It was not immediately clear whether the emergency workers had finished excavating the site, or how the eyewitnesses arrived at the horrific death toll. Soon after the airstrike, Ludmila Denisova, the Ukrainian Parliament's Human Rights Commissioner, said more than 1,300 people had been sheltering in the building. Mariupol has been the scene of some of the worst devastation of the war, which has seen Russia relentlessly besiege and pummel Ukrainian cities. The misery inside them is such that nearly anyone who tries to leave, or those who are left behind, face desperate food shortages in a country once known as the breadbasket of the world. In the shelled city of Kharkiv, mostly elderly women came to collect food and other urgent supplies. In the capital of Kiev, ashes of the dead are piling up at the main crematorium because so many relatives have died, leaving urns unclaimed. Next news. Germany's economy minister says his country has forged contracts with new suppliers that will allow it to significantly reduce its reliance on Russian coal, gas, and oil in the coming weeks. Robert Habeck told supporters in Berlin on Friday that Russian oil will account for about 25% of Germany's imports in the coming weeks, from currently about 35%. Habeck said imports of Russian coal, which will be halved from about 50% of Germany's total 25% in the coming weeks. He said Germany also expects to be able to become almost entirely independent of Russian gas by mid-2024. To do this, the government has secured the use of 3 floating terminals capable of regasifying the LNG brought in by the ship, and is working hard to build permanent LNG terminals for long-term imports. A Ukrainian who fled the country with her daughter has finished first among women in this year's Jerusalem Marathon. Valentina Varetska, 31, competed in Friday's race after fleeing with her 11-year-old daughter shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. Her husband stayed behind. Organizers say Varetska finished the 26.2-mile, which is 42.2-kilometer race in 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 54 seconds. Agiz Gouadia, 33, from Israel, finished first in the men's category with a time of, it's not written here. Next news. The resignation of a senior Russian government official and his reported move abroad wasn't the first voluntary departure of a person from a state job since the start of Russia's war with Ukraine. But it certainly was one of the most striking. Anatoly Chubais, who was President Vladimir Putin's envoy to international organizations on sustainable development, is well known in Russia. He held high-profile posts for nearly 3 decades, beginning under Boris Yeltsin, the first post-Soviet leader. So, a number of public figures have condemned the invasion of Ukraine and left their posts at state-run institutions and companies, which could signal divisions in Russia's official ranks over the war. So far, there have been no indications that the resignations have reached into Putin's inner circle. The handful of departures came as Putin blasted those opposing his course as, in quotes, scum and traitors, according to Putin, which Russian society would spit out like a gnat. Interesting. Some of the high-profile figures who have turned their backs on the Kremlin, and with good reason, because of the war. On Wednesday, the Kremlin confirmed media reports about the resignation of Chubais, 66, who was the architect of Yeltsin's privatization campaign. The report, citing anonymous sources, said he stepped down because of the war. He hasn't publicly commented on his resignation. Next news. President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine is approaching a new and potentially even more dangerous phase after a month of fighting has left Russian forces stalled by an outnumbered foe of theirs. He is left with stark choices, Mr. Putin. How and where to replenish his spent ground forces, whether to attack the flow of Western arms to Ukrainian defenders. He doesn't know which. Is that a loss? And at what cost he might escalate or widen the war of his. Despite failing to score a quick victory, Mr. Putin, or Putin, as others like to call him, is not relenting in the face of mounting international pressure. Well, with good reason, including sanctions that have battered his economy. The Western world is aligned largely against Putin, but there have been no indications he's losing support from the majority of the Russian public that relies predominantly on state-controlled TV for information. Ukrainian defenders, outgunned but benefiting from years of American and NATO training and accelerating influx of foreign arms and moral support, and showing new signs of confidence as the invading force struggles to regroup. Russian shortcomings in Ukraine might be the biggest shock of the war so far. After 2 decades of modernization and professionalization, Putin's forces have proved to be ill-prepared, poorly coordinated, and surprisingly stoppable. The extent of Russian troop losses is not known in detail, although NATO estimates that between 7,000 and 15,000 have died in the first 4 weeks, potentially as many as Russia lost in a decade of war in Afghanistan. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thanks for watching.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Russian attacks continued across Ukraine this week as residents fled their homes and country in search of safety. Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered a rousing Moscow speech, and NATO leaders met in Brussels for an emergency summit. Children received shots against polio as a vaccination drive was launched in 4 countries in southern and eastern Africa following a confirmed outbreak in Malawi. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange married his partner Stella Morris in a small service held at the high-security Belmarsh prison in London. This photo gallery highlights some of the most compelling images made or published in the week by the Associated Press from Europe and Africa. The selection was curated by Rome photographer Alessandra Tarantino. Next news. North Korea said Friday it test-fired its biggest yet intercontinental ballistic missile under the orders of leader Kim Jong-un, who vowed to expand the North's nuclear war deterrent while preparing for a long-standing confrontation with the United States. The report by North Korean state media came a day after the militaries of South Korea and Japan said they detected the North launching an ICBM in its first long-range test since 2017. The launch extended a barrage of weapons demonstrations this year that analysts say are aimed at forcing the United States to accept the idea of North Korea as a nuclear power and remove crippling sanctions against its broken economy that has been further damaged by pandemic-related difficulties. State TV dramatized the testing process like a Hollywood movie, showing Kim walking in slow motion in front of his giant missile in sunglasses and black leather motorcycle jacket. It edited quick cuts that alternately show Kim and other officials staring at their watches before Kim takes off his shades and nods, with the video then showing the missile being rolled out of the hangar. The Hwasong 17, which was fired at a high angle to avoid the territorial waters of neighbors, reached a maximum altitude of 6,248 kilometers, which is 3,880 miles, and traveled 1,090 kilometers, which is 680 miles, during a 67-minute flight before landing in waters between North Korea and neighbors Japan. Pyongyang's official Korean Central News Agency said. Next news. As coronavirus infections rise in some parts of the world, experts are watching for a potential new COVID-19 surge right here in the U.S. and wondering how long it will take to detect it. Despite disease monitoring improvements over the past 2 years, they say some recent developments don't bode well. As more people take rapid COVID-19 tests at home, fewer people are getting the gold standard tests that the government relies on for case counts. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will soon use fewer labs to look for new variants. Health officials are increasingly focusing on hospital admissions, which rise only after a surge has arrived. A wastewater surveillance program remains a patchwork that cannot yet be counted on for the data needed to understand coming surges. White House officials say the government is running out of funds for vaccines, treatments, and testing. We're not in a great situation, said Jennifer Nuzzo, a Brown University pandemic researcher scientist, acknowledges the wide availability of vaccines and treatments puts the nation in a better place than when the pandemic began, and that monitoring has come a long way. For example, scientists this week touted a 6-month-old program that tests international travelers flying into 4 U.S. airports. Genetic testing of a sample on December 14th turned up a coronavirus variant, the descendant of Omicron known as BA.2, 7 days earlier than anyone reported detection in the United States. Next news. Germany's health minister said Friday that it's too soon to declare a Freedom Day from COVID as this virus continues to run rampant, claiming hundreds of lives every day. The country's disease control agency reported 296,498 newly confirmed coronaviruses in the past 24 hours and 288 deaths. German lawmakers voted last week to let most federal rules on wearing masks and testing expire. But Health Minister Karl Lauterbach urged the country's 16 states to use their powers to ensure social distancing and other safety measures in virus hotspots. In quotes. The pandemic isn't over by a long shot, end quotes, Lauterbach told reporters in Berlin. In quotes. There can be no talk of a Freedom Day. Quite the contrary, end quotes. He said the real number of daily infections wasn't known, but could be twice that currently reported. Hospitals in particular were having to cancel procedures due to large numbers of sick staff, he added. Germany has had fewer deaths per capita than comparable European countries since the start of the outbreak, the pandemic. But officials are concerned that the low vaccination rate of under 76% could result in many more severe cases in the future, particularly among the older population. This has been the daily global news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you for watching. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. This includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, on YouTube, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers, now both on network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, which is very good. Also, all smart TV platforms. Really. Please enjoy our entertainment and latest news and views and current events on all our Millennium TV apps. Millennium TV USA, Android, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumnews24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24/7. Thank you, and God bless.